We are actually at the site of the road just before the new construction zone. This is where the locals on Lesvos have been blockading. They've kind of created a bit of a makeshift barrier using some council earth-moving equipment to stop any attempt that this government has of trying to get any crew into the site. There was talk about bulldozing the new road to lead into this construction area, but that is now not going to happen while these people say they're on watch, and they say they have absolutely no intention of going anywhere until the government backs down from its plans to build a new detention centre here on the island of Lesvos.
So the protesters are still on their spots and they're not leaving. How many actually are there?
Here at this site, we've probably only got about 40 people or so, but we've just left the port of Mytilene. It's about less than an hour's drive from where we are right now. And there was almost 1,000 people rallying in the port there. Interestingly, the riot police that had come to the island to try and stop this blockade, and pictures you saw in my colleague Yolo's package just then of the clashes with local residents, those riot police have now been recalled back to Athens, and we saw their heavily armed vehicles and the officers board a chartered ferry to take them back to the capital early this morning. So we had about 1,000 people gathering at that port, in part as a show of strength to say that they're not going anywhere and this general strike will continue, and also as a bit of a celebration because they say it's a small victory that they've won against the establishment.
And exactly what are the locals' concern over this construction of the migrant centres?
The real issue they have is that the government had always promised that that a large proportion of the migrants on some of these Greek islands would be taken to the mainland and processed, and that just hasn't happened. Particularly, the Greek Prime Minister said he would use the winter months to relocate a lot of people to get that process started and to have them relocated, and that just hasn't happened. At the moment, the detention centre on Lesvos Moria is absolutely overflowing. It was built to house about 3,000 people, and it now has about 20,000 overflowing into the olive groves around the detention centre. They're inhumane conditions, and it's just not a situation that the people of Lesvos want to be associated with. Their concern is that when this detention centre is built, it's got a capacity for only an estimated 5,000 to 6,000. So they want to know, where are all the other people going to go? Are they now going to have 2 detention centres? They say Lesvos is just turning into a floating prison.
Yes, and as you mentioned there, Melinda, Mr. Mitsotakis and his Conservative government have taken a tougher line on migration, as we know, and they gave proposals about a floating barrier to block migrants from arriving by sea. So what are they actually doing? What is happening? Have we heard from them?
At this stage, nothing yet, because we are awaiting the mayors from the islands that have current detention centres, and they are the areas where these new centres will be built. Those mayors are meeting with the Prime Minister in Athens this evening. They are going to be very tense discussions because those local mayors do not want new centres being built, and they want to know why the government hasn't upheld its promise to process and relocate migrants to the mainland. On the other hand, on the other side of that table, the government says it is going ahead with its plan to build these centres, and it has no intention of backing down. So they're going to be very tense discussions, and the protesters here behind me say they're not expecting any kind of positive breakthrough, and they're not going anywhere until they get that, but they're not holding their breath.
Well, just very briefly there, Melinda, so as you have mentioned, what's happening in those detention centres is a human rights violation. So have we actually had any reaction from European leaders or the international community, or have they turned a blind eye?
The United Nations Human Rights Commission has certainly raised its concerns and said that this is a violation of human rights and that it's something that they are very concerned about, the conditions that these people are being forced to live in. Like I said, they're overflowing from these detention centres and being forced to live under tarps and in makeshift camps in olive groves around the islands. So it's definitely been a sense of concern for many human rights organisations. But as far as other European leaders go, it's hard for them really to have much of an opinion because really the question remains, where are these migrants going to go? No one wants to be the country that puts their hand up to say that they're going to house them. So at the moment, it's a burden that really is resting solely on Greece's shoulders.